I don't want to talk about it. But here we are. I have to talk about it. The fun didn't last very long. What's up, everyone? I'm Sam Peña. Unfortunately, I'm a Bolt fan in the Berg, and unfortunately, I have to talk to you all about that disastrous performance by the Chargers in Week 4 against the New York Giants. You know, I remember just a week ago thinking the Chargers are in the perfect position. They're 3-0, it's Sunday Night Football, the Chiefs facing off against the New York Giants. What if the Giants miraculously pulled off an upset victory over the Kansas City Chiefs? But then I remembered I can't have nice things in life, and apparently no Chargers fans can have nice things in life. And guess what? Not only did the Giants not beat the Chiefs, they decided to have that upset performance the very next week against the Chargers. So, without further ado, let's talk about it. The first thing you have to talk about when it comes to this game is just the disastrous performance by the offensive line. We knew coming into this game that it was going to be a tough matchup for the Chargers offensive line. They just got kind of steamrolled the week before against the Denver Broncos, and they gave up over 20 pressures in that game. So going into week 2, it didn't get any easier facing a really good Giants defensive line with guys like Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns and even their first-round pick, Abdul Carter. I knew Herbert would be under siege, but I thought at the very least going into this game that we would have a game plan to be able to kind of chip and be able to give Herbert just an extra split second to be able to get rid of the football. That unfortunately didn't happen, and a large part of that was because of the injury to Joe Alt early in the game. He left in the first quarter. It didn't look like a great injury. Fortunately, the x-rays were negative, but it seems like he suffered a high ankle sprain, which is something that's probably going to bother him for the next few weeks, if not keep him out of a couple of games this season, which is not ideal for the Chargers because the backup, Austin Deculus, did not perform well at all. When you look at the Chargers' pressure numbers in that game, Deculus gave up a team-high 6 pressures. The rest of the team did relatively decent outside of Jamari Salyer, who gave up 5 pressures. You look at Bozeman, he gave up 4. Pipkins gave up 3. Zion Johnson really was the only one who was performing at a decent level with 1 pressure in that game. But this is going to be a problem for the Chargers for the rest of the season. Listen, we knew coming in that the team was overperforming when it came to an offensive line perspective, but boy, oh boy, did I hope that it wouldn't be this bad. Herbert had basically no time to throw, and despite getting the football out the fastest of any quarterback this week, on average of 2.5 seconds, it really didn't matter. He was just under siege start to finish, and in the last 2 weeks between the Broncos games and the Giants game, he's been under pressure for more than 50% of his dropbacks. That's not acceptable. The Chargers can't win games that way. And it's especially frustrating when this was finally the game where the running game finally took off. Omarion Hampton was phenomenal today for the Chargers. He was their MVP, or I guess you could say their SVP in this game, because he was consistently making plays for the Chargers, which comes to one of my frustrations with this game, is the reason why the Chargers continually were taking him out of the game on critical downs. There were multiple third downs, 3rd down and 7s, 3rd down and 8s, where Hampton had just made a play prior to get them into this position, and yet for some reason he was taken off the field and Hassan Haskins was put onto the field. That's a failure on the part of Greg Roman to recognize the hot hand on the team and not continue to feed him. I've loved the fact that the Chargers came out throwing the football this year. I feel like when you have a Lamborghini like Herbert, you use him. But the problem is, right now, the Lamborghini doesn't have any wheels. Or rather, the person driving it doesn't have a driver's license because there's no offensive line to be able to make it work. The Chargers aren't going to be able to continue passing the football 40 plus times a game if they're giving up pressures on 20 of those snaps. You have to find a way to be able to get the pass rush off of Herbert, which means you need something of a running game. And today, we saw that running game, but we didn't stick with it. The Chargers continually failed to put Herbert in a position to succeed. And I know a big takeaway coming out of this game from the national media, the people who didn't actually watch the game or who have agendas against Herbert, is going to be, oh, Justin Herbert shrinking once again. He had 2 picks in this game. Then you actually watch the game and you realize Herbert played very well in this game. Both of the interceptions were not on him. One of them was a batted past the line that was caught by Dexter Lawrence, and the other one was a play where Tyler Conklin and Ladd McConkey ran into each other when they were trying to run a route. Herbert threw the pass. Neither one of them were there because they were both down on the ground. Giants came away with the interception. These are plays that, simply put, there's nothing you can do to prepare for that. You just have to execute to the best of your ability, and the Chargers did not execute to their best today. And a big part of not performing up to that expectation was the penalties in this game. The Chargers had 11 penalties for over 100 yards, and they seemed to come at the absolute worst times. At one point in the third quarter, the Chargers had a 3rd down and 3 in what could have been a drive to take the lead in the game. And then they had back-to-back false start penalties, one by Zion Johnson, really his one major negative play of the game, and then another by the rookie Rondé Gadsden, which put them back into 3rd and 15. The Chargers can't play like this the rest of the year. They had penalties on the defense, penalties on the offense, penalties on special teams that were continually either extending New York Giant drives, hampering their own drives, or putting the Giants in prime field position or taking away prime field position for the Chargers. It was just one mistake back to back to back to back that eventually ended up cracking their backs completely. The Chargers have to find a way to be able to get lined up correctly and execute the plays that are sent into the huddle. They didn't do that today. This can't be a problem in the future, or else they're going to continue to struggle. Fortunately for the Chargers, this was the last top-tier defensive line they're going to be facing, at least for the next few weeks. So hopefully this offensive line isn't going to be having as many penalties as they did today. But this is something they're going to have to watch out for when we get to later in the year and you start to face some of those top-tier defenses once again. Because guess what? Chris Jones and the Kansas City Chiefs, they're still out there. I know you handled them week 1. In week 2, you're going to be playing in Kansas City. In that next game against them, you are going to have to go into their house and win that game, which leads really to the main disturbance that comes out of this game, which is losing positioning in the AFC West battle. Going into this game, the Chargers had an opportunity to start 4-0, and regardless of whatever was going to happen in Kansas City's game, they were going to have at least a two-game lead in the division and have 3 straight divisional victories. Well, now you gave away an easy game, and now you're only 1 game up on Kansas City because guess what? They just destroyed Baltimore today. When it comes to later in the season, that's going to be a big problem. The Chargers gave away a game early that could have put them in prime position to maintain the AFC West lead. Now, they've lost a lot of that room for error. Moving on to the defensive side, just a few notes I want to have on the performance overall. I think the team was solid defensively. Shout out to Tuli Tuipulotu, who had 4 sacks today. He was credited as having the most pressures in the league without a sack of any player through the first 3 weeks of the season. There were so many almost sacks by Tuli in the first 3 weeks on Bo Nix and Patrick Mahomes. Finally, he broke through against the young Jackson Dart and was able to take him down 4 times. He's showing that he can take the leap and be that top-tier edge rushers the Chargers need once Khalil Mack eventually retires, which might be sooner rather than later. So that's a positive sign for the defense. Also, the pass defense in terms of the secondary was also pretty strong today as well. I thought we saw good games out of Dante Jackson and Benjamin St-Juste, who has continued to make plays in the secondary, where I think the main problems were on the defensive side were on the ability to be able to spy the quarterback. I understand that there's no tape out there on Jackson Dart because this was his first ever start, but there is such a thing as college tape, which does carry over a little bit into the NFL, and I felt like the Chargers were woefully underprepared for what he was going to bring to the table, which was his ability to scramble. He constantly was breaking the Chargers back defensively by making a run on 3rd and 13, 3rd and 14 to be able to get the first down or get near to a first down so they could convert it on 4th down. It was frustrating to see the Chargers consistently missing their tackling angles on him. And that was the main problem. It wasn't the fact that they were just kind of letting him run free. They were rallying up and getting to him about 5 yards short of the sticks, but he would just do a little shimmy or a little sideways move, and he would manage to get 3 or 4 yards that he shouldn't have gotten if the Chargers had just taken the proper tackling angle on him. Unfortunately, players like Deion Henley, who had been playing at an all-pro level up until this game, Troy Dye, even Alohi Gilman in the secondary, consistently were taking bad angles to the ball carrier and allowing them to get first downs that they never should have gotten. And that especially killed them towards the end of the game when the Chargers had them on a 3rd down and 5 with an opportunity to get off the field, get Justin Herbert the football back with 2 minutes left, and then Deion Henley completely lost the tight end in coverage. He gets behind him. It's an easy first down. All of a sudden, Herbert only has 20 seconds at the end of the game to try to come back. And guess what? He almost did. He threw a beautiful ball downfield to Quentin Johnston. who had a great game and then suddenly decided to start having drop issues again, dropped the pass. Now the Chargers were basically with zero time left at 13 seconds. There was no way they were going to be able to get in field goal range. Herbert tried one pass deep to Johnson. He caught it, but it was in bounds. Game over. Thank you all so much again for watching. That's all I have for this episode. Hopefully we'll have better days ahead of us as Chargers fans, although history says otherwise. We'll see though. The Chargers still have a pretty good team moving forward here. I'm hoping they can right the ship in Week 5. Until then, Bolt Nation, please drop a like or subscribe to the channel. We're trying to build this here from the ground up. And as always, until next time, Bolt Nation, bolt up.